I decided to change up our music this week. This is the Newsboys. Oh, again, the Newsboys. Yes, we're in the moment now.
Nice.
Hey, Dave, this is... What is this? What is it? What do we call this?
Fresh black coffee.
I'm fresh? No, he's fresh.
And we brought the coffee.
Yeah,
Eddie,
we got the coffee.
I tried some this week. Smooth, rich, and very fresh taste. Very good. So, and that's only available at freshblackcoffee.com through our spot. What do you call that store?
Oh. I don't know.
Shopify.
Well, yeah. Did you get that?
Shopify. We're getting the links up.
Yeah,
probably by the time they see this episode, the coffee will be waiting for them in the store.
Yeah, just stay tuned. Stay tuned.
That's right.
As you can see, I'm a terrible marketer. I am. I'm absolutely the worst. I've got a book. We've got coffee.
Yeah.
I raise money for orphans and children in Africa. And, last year, honest, this is no joke, I think I raised $40,000 for kids in Africa. Okay?
Dude, you have layers. Yes.
No, and I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, people find out about it, and where can I give? It reminds me of when I started selling insurance with Farmers Insurance, and they were training us, and the trainer told us, he says, I am convinced that there are agents that the clients take them in there and tie them to a chair and make them sell them insurance.
Wow.
and that's kind of how I feel sometimes about accepting charity or gifts and things like that from people. I am not now some of you may have heard my ads for insurance ads and things like that. But when it asks for donations or gifts or even my book, or selling my coffee, it's just a different thing.
I know. You're not a self-promoter.
I'm not. It's just not me. It's just, I've never been that way. I think something my dad told me years ago, and you guys may have heard it from others, but I think my dad always told me, he said, let others praise you.
Yeah. Well, I think Jesus said something to that.
Did Jesus say that?
Or wait a minute. It was in Proverbs, let another man's lips praise you, not your own.
Okay. That must be where my dad got it. I don't know. But even though I led my dad to the Lord, he probably heard it from his aunt when he was little or something. But I've always been that way. I've just never been a guy to toot my own horn or try to and it's always bugged me when people do.
Yeah, last night I was invited to some kind of a swanky meet and greet that you don't even get in the door for less than $125 to their campaign.
And that's a cheap one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the lower level.
That's a low end.
That's not being a host or a diamond host.
That's slumming. That's slumming.
But, I remember Bill Bennett was Reagan's Secretary of Education.
I remember with Bill.
And brilliant guy. He just would not run for office, any office, because he said, it's just not in me to beg for money. I can't do it. And that's part of the requirements of running for any office.
Yeah. That's kind of, people have always asked me, are you running for this? Why don't you run? And it's like that. I've always told people I like to run from office because I just cannot see me going to business people asking for money.
Yeah.
It's just...
Now, it actually makes your value higher. For instance, ministry efforts like this Ugandan orphanage, you say. How many people, men of the collar, we'll call them, are so into self-promotion it's turned people off. That it's refreshing when you get somebody that says, this is a real good cause. I'd like you to get behind it, and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know, somehow it works though. You know, as I said, we were 12 years overseas and we made it. I mean, and we didn't send out letters.
Yeah.
We did, you know, I'll never forget George Mueller. You've probably heard this about George Mueller. He didn't believe in it either. He just believed praying and asking God. And I always remember the story where he had an orphanage. He had an orphanage where he took care of boys, and he was a true prayer warrior. He believed in the power of prayer. Yep. And I remember that they ran out of food. They didn't have food, and he had all of the orphans around, and they says, boys, we're going to ask God. We're going to thank God for what we have. And it had there was nothing, but they still sat there and gave thanks. And as they finished praying and thanking God, the door knocked.
Wow.
And this bread truck showed up and said, we ran our route. We have all this bread left over. I don't even remember why, but they had all this bread left over, and someone told us that you might want this, and they had all these extra loaves of bread. Yeah, and they ended up having. I still get goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps telling the story, but they had all this bread that these young men were able to enjoy, and whatever they had to be able to put on the bread. But oh man, you know, in his life, if you've never had a chance, you should read his biography, George Mueller, and his prayer. And it's funny because he prayed for his whole family. I don't know if you've ever heard this story. He prayed for every one of his members of his family to get saved. And I can't remember whether it was his brother or one of his children that wasn't saved during his life. But the day he died, that last relative died coming to see him when he on his deathbed. That last relative he prayed for came to receive Christ. So anyway, you're getting me all fired up there. Hey, let me get back to you guys. No, this is, I didn't even know this was there until somebody who likes this coffee, he said, give me some of that dark and gentle coffee.
Nice.
I said, dark and gentle? Which one is that? He said, the one that says dark and gentle. And so I was saying, wait a minute, we got gorilla roast and we've got medium roast. And so I went and looked, oh yeah, this one says dark and gentle. I don't even know. That's how I am. I'm the big picture guy. I don't even, you know, and the people that roasted for us here in town, Imperial Coffee, and we thank them so much for doing that for us. But by the way, these beans are actually from Uganda. These are actually from, they're called the Rwenzori Mountains. It's a mountain range that's between the Congo and Uganda. And it's high altitude. It's, I don't know, I don't want to go into it. It's different types of coffee. You're probably familiar, you know, the different types of coffee. There's a high altitude coffee and stuff that's grown at low levels in the high. Arabica is the high altitude, and that's what everybody seems to think is good. And then you've got the Robusta, which is grown. And the Robusta has more of a bitter, and the high altitude coffee is a smoother coffee. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
I do want to say back to your thing about not being the self-promoter, and ministers, you're out there, church people, I want to encourage you. Sometimes it takes more faith to just shut your mouth and expect a miracle. Because who's your faith in? God is your provider, or your ability to pitch for donations? You know, Kenneth Hagin, of course, is, you know, I went to his school. I got to meet him and sit under his ministry. And one of the things he says, you know, you got to let people know what's available to them. So he did advertise, you know, his camp meetings and stuff. But I remember his radio show that went on for decades and decades. And the only pitch he ever made was, ask the Lord what he'd have you do to support this radio ministry.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny though. I was just thinking while you were talking about not advertising, not pitching. And then I look around. You got the book. You got that.
You got to let them know what's available.
I didn't do it. I walk in and I'm looking around. He's got all this stuff out here, and I'm thinking, "What's next?" We got T-shirts hanging.
No, that's me.
I know, but it's okay. It's okay. Hey, welcome to Fresh Black Coffee with Eddie and Dave, okay? And we do so enjoy doing this every weekend.
That's right.
We hope you enjoy listening to us with our stuff, as they say.
That's right.
Hey, Dave, this is quite a week. We had a few things happen. I'm going to start on the more lighthearted stuff, and then we'll move into the deeper stuff.
Good.
Oh, man. Joe Biden is the gift that keeps on giving, it seems.
Yeah.
And I'll start with the fact that the Bidens apparently got a new pet this week.
Really?
Yeah, it was all over the news. I mean, that was the thing that occupied the news yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, can you believe with the Ukraine, inflation, I know, can you believe it? You got inflation, you've got Ukraine going on, the border crisis, you've got police being shot. In fact, the day of a funeral, this mega funeral in New York of police being shot. And not only in New York, they're shot in Houston.
Yep.
You've got crime going insane. You've got all kinds of just rampant unrest in America. And what does CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, you name them, what do they focus on? The Bidens getting a new pet.
No.
They got him a cat.
I thought they had a dog.
They did have a dog, but apparently it kept biting the Secret Service.
I thought he kept peeing on Joe's leg. I don't know. Well,
No.
you know, once a dog gets so old, a male dog, they
No,
quit
I
squatting and they start lifting their leg.
Well, yeah, well, no. This dog had a bite problem. They had to get rid of it. They did get rid of it because it kept. I'm wondering how they got rid of it. I'm wondering if they didn't have to put it down because it bit so many people. And apparently, it wasn't just little nips.
Yeah.
They kept, and they apparently underplayed. In Politico, I read, because me, inquisitive minds want to know.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those inquisitive minds. I want to know what happened. Why did they get rid of the dog? And apparently, the dog kept biting Secret Service.
That's
and
interesting.
Yeah. And so, and sometimes apparently they bit him pretty badly. And so they decided they better get rid of this
I'll
dog.
check in on it. I've got a client of mine, longtime client, and he's really become a dear friend, that he now lives in another state, and I have to be careful. We were on the phone talking the other day, and he said, sometime I got to tell you some stories. I said,
Oh, he
what's
was
that?
a Secret Service person?
He says, my golfing buddy is semi-retired Secret Service, and he gets called in every time Joe goes to Delaware, which happens a lot. So I have to
does
find...
he leave Delaware?
Yeah, right. Does Joe ever leave Delaware? In his mind, who knows?
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing I want to say. Remember the yuppie days, the 80s, all the young urban professionals, and all of a sudden job, loyalty to your workplace was nothing. And there's a stockbroker worked in New York for a brokerage house. He hadn't been there 6 months. And he took a job across the street, and he tells his former employer now that he's leaving immediately. And the employer's so frustrated, he says, where is your sense of loyalty? The young yuppie says, sir, you want loyalty? Get a dog. And unfortunately, not even Joe's dog was loyal enough.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that. That even speaks that even the dog is biting him. Wait till we find out that the cat tears up the White House, scratching up all the furniture and the Kennedy desk.
There goes Jill's pantyhose.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, gee. All right, moving right along. Our next topic. You know who Enrique Tarrio is?
Tell us.
He is the Black Cuban white nationalist.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that
Proud Boys, the drinking buddies who like to talk politics.
Yeah,
that's how they describe themselves.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's it. That's exactly what they are. But anyway, he just got out of prison. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they locked him up for almost 6 months, about 5 months.
Who'd he kill?
BLM flag.
Oh. That's worse than...
This is what really ticks me off, okay? He burned a BLM flag and got 6 months. A BLM flag got 6 months. People burn American flags, Texas flags, you name the flag, a Confederate flag, any flag, and no big deal. You burn a BLM flag, 6 months. Yes. Now, you brought up an interesting point. You said he stole the flag. He didn't actually he tore it down from someone, so they got him for stealing someone's property.
Yeah.
Well, how much is a BLM flag? How much do you think? I mean, if it's $100, let's say it's $100.
Yeah.
You don't think the Proud Boys can afford to pay? Okay, here's a new BLM flag for you. But no, they want to make it an example.
Absolutely.
6 months, people are breaking in, destroying department stores in New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, all of burning hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars of property destroyed. They're getting out on bond and not coming back. Many of them are getting no time, probation, whatever.
Yep.
And this guy burns a Black Lives Matter flag and gets 6 months in jail.
It's because of who he was.
Oh, of course. Oh, and here, get this. Think of the irony. Black Lives Matter, and they throw a black guy in jail for 6 months for burning a Black Lives Matter flag.
For what is essentially a political protest act. Now, it's not his property. We're going to side with the law.
We've established that.
On that. Yeah. But again, it's because of who he is. We're going to make an example of that boy. That's exactly what they're
and that's boy with a small b.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I agree.
He calls himself Proud Boy, right? So,
but that's a capital B.
Yeah.
But it just shows you, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in USSA.
Yep.
Or United Soviet Socialist of America.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually USSRA. Mm-hmm. United Soviet Socialist Republic of America. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you that the squad would love to change it to put that R, that extra S and R in there.
Yep.
I mean, we've got the R, we are Radio Republic, but they would love to have that extra S in there.
Really?
It's a sad situation we're in. But just, again, think about that. Think about that. You've got a black Cuban. Now he's black and Latino. That should check 2 boxes. The only thing that would add to it is if he were a female, black Latina female, that did the same thing and were thrown into jail. And apparently the conditions were horrible. They tried to get him out early because of the conditions being horrible, but no, we're not going to let him out early.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. People. First, pray. Please pray. Pray that God will intervene and we can turn this thing around. And then secondly, protest. We have got to begin taking control of our country. Vote this fall. You've got to vote, okay? You've got to get out, and we've got to hold these politicians to account. We've got to do it. Please, and get everybody, and write your newspapers, your media. Our voices need to be heard. I wanted to talk about, I wrote an article several years ago called The New Conservatives and the New Radicals. And that was, we used to have old radicals and old conservatives, and the old radicals were your hippies basically, and those radicals were young. They had, well, of course they were long hair, but they were all mixed races. They were mixed gender and everything. And your conservatives were old. They were male. They were over 50. They were all of these things. And now it's switched around. It's turned around totally. So now your conservatives tend to be younger. I'll give you an example of an old radical, Neil Young.
Oh,
Neil Young is an old radical. The Clintons are old radicals, right? Those are all. Barack Obama is an old radical.
Absolutely.
He's over 50 now. Him and his wife, they're all over 50. You name them. Oh, George Soros, a really old radical, not to mention old rascal. So these are all old radicals, and your new radicals are your younger people. I'll give you a name. Elon Musk. Elon Musk is one of your new radicals. I mean, they're starting to hate him. Okay, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is one. A lot of these people, and they're now the new radical, and everybody is attacking the new establishment is young. It's mixed gender. It's mixed race. It's mixed everything. So we've got a whole new. We've just got a whole new paradigm switch of what's radical and what's conservative.
What's even worse is these old radicals.
Well, actually, I call them the new conservative. They're actually the new conservative because they're now trying to conserve and preserve their new establishment. They're the new establishment.
Yeah, remember in our day back in the 70s when you heard the liberals, and I would say truly liberals in the classical sense, saying, be open-minded, be open to other perspectives, lifestyles, points of view. And this bunch is the most intolerant bunch in power.
There's an old word for that.
What's that?
Hypocrite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's an old adage I heard a long time ago. Do you remember? It was a saying where somebody said, I don't want to go to church because it's full of hypocrites. And they would say, oh, no, there's always room for more.
You go.
No, it's okay. You can join. There's always room for more. And it's so true because I've never seen anything so hypocritical. You know, I think of the ladies on The View. They sit there. You talk about the biggest bunch of hypocritical cackling hens on earth. I mean, I don't know how they can stand each other. In fact, I bet you when they leave, they talk so bad about each other that if they knew, they probably wouldn't be able to stand. They'd probably come out with steely knives pointed at each other.
And how many voices on the political right have they heckled and mocked and ran off that show?
Oh, yeah. They can't even get a new conservative.
Who would?
Oh, yeah. And so what do? They have this, what's this lady? She's a Cuban that they have, Anna something. And it's because she can't get a job on any conservative program working for any conservative person. So now she makes her living sitting on the View,
being their punching bag.
Supposedly they're conservative that agrees with everything they say, attacking other conservatives. I mean, how do you call yourself a conservative? I mean, she's so bad, she makes Liz Cheney look right wing.
Now we know the exit strategy for Liz Cheney, the next panelist on The View.
Yeah, or she may even get her own show on MSNBC. Oh, I guarantee you they will have Liz Cheney sitting on one of these MSNBC. Yeah, she's looking for a job. Yeah. Or an Adam Kinzinger. He'd be sitting.
The bullies.
Donald Trump is such an animal. He's just... What they did to me on January 6th, and he's like 5 miles away. I mean, that kind of stuff. I can't believe this stuff. I mean, it's just, am I watching? Is this for real? Is somebody playing games? I mean, I cannot believe these people. Who voted for these people? I mean, this is Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and people, Mitt Romney. Oh, did you hear they had a fundraiser for Liz Cheney?
Really? Who did?
I don't know. I don't know who would that. Yeah, it was like $1,000 a plate fundraiser or something.
Had to be in Washington.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the guest of honor, the main speaker was Mitt Romney.
Oh, sure.
Mitt Romney. Oh,
Yeah.
my God, of course. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? I mean, he's the next one gone. He's safe because he's not up for re-election again for 2 more years after this.
Right.
So you got Liz Cheney, who will be shown the door here in November. And then 2 years after that, Mitt Romney will be shown the door. But, man, I don't know.
This goes back so many generations. The Eastern, Northern, liberal Republican base. I remember back when Reagan was first stepped up to help Barry Goldwater. Reagan literally became the mouthpiece for the conservative and libertarian view. So effective that Goldwater realized, man, this guy should have been the candidate, not me. But who he was fighting against were 3 governors. Well, let me put this, 2 governors and a U.S. senator. Senator Prescott Bush, that's George Bush 41's father, Nelson Rockefeller, governor of New York, and the Michigan governor,
Romney.
George Romney. And you look at the generations that have come after them, and it's that same Northeastern clique, not a conservative. Well, Mitt called himself severely conservative one time when he was speaking to CPAC.
Severely?
Yes. Yeah, Rush Limbaugh says, what real conservative defines his conservatism as severe? So, anyway, but this is that bunch, and they're still trying to hang on to power. And you know what? They've been pretty effective, because what ended up happening when Reagan got the nomination locked up in 80, all of his people said, they're going to Goldwater you. Nelson Rockefeller almost got that nomination, but when in 64, but when Barry Goldwater got it, Nelson Rockefeller sabotaged it. And so Reagan was concerned about that repeating of history 16 years later. So who did he ask to be his running mate? Was George Bush, George H.W. Bush. And what happened is they hung on to power, the vestiges, and who became his predecessor? Bush 41, right? So you've got that bunch, and they're still very effective and very powerful because they're swamp creatures.
Yeah.
So,
but you know what's so crazy though is that Goldwater in the end ended up becoming more liberal probably than all of them. He just went nuts. I don't know what happened to him.
Socially, his politics became more libertarian.
Yeah. Basically, he became libertarian, but I mean, I would call it lunatarian.
Well, and you see some of the things that he advocated for. He said government really shouldn't be defining who gets married and who doesn't. Shouldn't be, the drug issue.
Of course, you'd be on his side on that.
Well, within some reason. Because I tell you what, when you're taking a drug that causes you to lose your self-control, your mentality, and it's a severe addiction, now all of a sudden it is a public safety issue. So, there's only so far you can go before your rights all of a sudden
infringe on somebody
start
else.
affecting my rights.
Hey, Dave, we got to take a break.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back after these messages.
I'm Jeff Davis with Just a Thought. From the world hindquarters of dubious information, it's Fake News Friday. From the Garden of Fear Porn, there was fake news that genetic engineers put RNA in some food crops that make black people infertile. There was a fake story that vegan blood was 8 times more effective against cancer. Vegans, however, are 100% more effective against meat. People believe satire that originated with The Onion that America was sold to 5 billionaires in 1927. How do you sell them what they already own? Buyer beware, some of the N95 masks for sale are not N95 and could be harmful to your health. In CNN fake news, they've hired someone to help filter fake news out of their broadcasts. Might as well sign up. And there's this. Both NPR and CNN's Nina Totenberg falsely reported that Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch refused to wear a mask as requested by Chief Justice Roberts. CNN really needs that fake news filter. And if that wasn't bad enough, some crooks are still selling fake expensive bourbon.
Oh, the pain. The pain.
Just a thought. I'm Jeff Davis.
And we're back.
Yes, going to be a little bit of editing going on here today. Hey, we're back. And we thank you guys for hanging with us, seriously. So, Dave, we were talking about a bit of history for you younger people. We were speaking about the 60s. And, you know, it's funny how hindsight is always so good. We didn't see what was coming back in the 60s with Romney's and basically the not so conservative.
That's right.
And the fact that Goldwater, who was conservative, was more of a libertarian, and that ended up. In fact, it's so funny because he seemed a John Birch conservative, but really he was more of a libertarian. I don't know if he was that or drifted more in that direction.
He was, but you know what's unique? When you look at the, let's just say the Ron Paul libertarian conservative, compared to Barry Goldwater was a war hawk. Barry Goldwater was huge on defense, anti-communism. Remember, this was the apex of the Cold War days.
Yeah, but here's my question on that. I don't think you can be an anti-war or a peace activist in the world. I just don't. And listen to me here. Biblically, I don't think you can be a peace activist. Okay, and here's why. The reason I say that is because biblically there are too many references to war.
Sure.
Warring in the spirit warring against the flesh, et cetera, et cetera. We're in constant battle against. Now, you would say, yeah, but that's a spiritual thing we're fighting. Yeah, but we're battling. Now, I'll give you an example. When I lived in Germany, and I know a lot of you, there he goes talking about himself again, going back into history. About I always do this, and I have to do this because I have to try to bring this into a real world example, okay?
Sure.
So I got into this long dissertation or argument, basically, with the head of the big German Christian magazine. And so what happened... this was when we first had the first Gulf War.
Sure.
And I guess it could kind of be an example of the whole Crimean situation or Ukraine, okay? But when Saddam attacked Kuwait, remember when Saddam attacked Kuwait?
Definitely.
Kuwait was our...
Late 1990.
Right. So Saddam attacks Kuwait, and so we send troops in to basically drive Saddam back up into Iraq and save the people of Kuwait. Well, the German Christians, in fact, the name of it was Pax, which peace is the Latin word for peace, okay? And so this editor of this German magazine wrote this long thing calling America the world's police. You know, we were the world's police. And in a sense, we were. And it's kind of funny because it's kind of like the people that want to defund the police now, they wanted to basically get rid of the world police, which is us. They don't want us to do that. Now, I see a big difference between Ukraine and the United States, okay? But let me get back to this. So the Germans basically, including the Christian, which a lot of these Christians are just basically like a lot of the left-wing Christians we have in America. And so they didn't see a reason for us to be in Kuwait helping the Kuwaiti people. So I wrote him a letter. We had this big dialogue, and I asked him a question. I said, okay, so you're walking down the street, and you hear these screams across the street, and you look over, and there's a woman being raped across the street. What do? Do you come to her aid or do you keep walking? He had no answer. Because to not come to the aid of a woman being raped basically says you're a coward. I mean, basically, any man that would not come to the aid of a woman being raped is a coward. I don't care how you slice it or dice it.
Yeah,
you are a coward.
I wouldn't even put sex as a qualifier in that, though.
Being beaten up, yeah, whatever, right?
Violence,
right.
yeah.
I just wanted to take it to so he couldn't weasel his way out.
Right.
Because you say, well, what if she's just being roughed up? What if she's being robbed and the guy's running? You know what I mean?
Right.
I wanted to be sure there's no way out.
Yeah, you set the premise is she's clearly being raped.
She's clearly being raped. Okay, stabbed. Something.
Yeah.
I just used rape because that was the worst.
Yeah,
thing.
it's a scenario.
Yeah, and so he couldn't answer it.
Yep.
Game, set, match. And this is what we're dealing with. And so this is kind of what war is like. In fact, I was telling Dave before we started, I just watched this new German pre-war movie last night about Neville Chamberlain and the whole prelude to the war about these two guys. One was a German, one was an British, and they both went to Oxford before the war. The German kid studied at Oxford, and they were best of friends. And the German was a pro-Hitler guy, a nationalist, until Hitler. His girlfriend was Jewish, and then Hitler, the Gestapo basically beat his girlfriend threw her out of a window, and she became a vegetable. And then he realized how bad the Nazis were. Yeah. And but you can have all these ideas until it hits home. Yeah. And therefore you've got to put everything into a perspective, and therefore getting back to your original with Goldwater.
Yeah.
And this whole idea, in fact, libertarians, a lot of just c'est la vie, live and let live.
Yeah.
Let people do what they want to do. Remove the laws. People will do what they will do, and it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. It's the reverse of evolution. You may call it evolution, but it becomes devolution. Everything devolves.
Right.
It's what is it? The second law of thermodynamics, where left to itself, everything ends up in chaos.
Okay.
It goes from order to disorder, and that's what I think. That's what I think of. If we don't have order, if you do not have structure, have order. Actually, I'm going to recommend a really good book, Terry. It's a real heady book. It's very tough to read. In fact, I used to have to read every page about 5 times every paragraph. It's from Thomas Sowell. It's called A Conflict of Vision. A Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell. And he talks about these two visions. One's a constrained and the unconstrained vision. And he said it's a difference between a conservative and a liberal, okay? The conservative has a constrained vision. And the constrained vision means that if I do wrong, there will be punishment.
Yeah.
The liberal has an unconstrained vision, which means if I do wrong, there's no consequence. So that means no matter what I do, it's going to be okay. It's going to work out. And it's for the individual and society. Eventually, it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. And this is what the difference is in the two societies. Now, it's not that simple. It ends up, he has, things, qualifiers within that. But basically, that's the difference in a constrained and an unconstrained vision. And this is what motivates liberals and conservatives. Okay, so this is something we're going to deal with, we're dealing with now just for free here today.
Yeah, you remember, what was the young fellow from, not a young guy anymore, from India, worked for Reagan, did the Obama movies. Yeah, D'Souza. I just tried pulling up on Google. I just did Obama movie, and they showed all the pro-Obama movies in the search results. And Dinesh D'Souza, who did 2 movies, it's not in there at all, right? But Dinesh D'Souza talked about the ideology that motivated Obama that he says really came from his father, his Kenyan father, an anti-colonialist. Here's the interesting thing I draw from it. It ties right into what you're talking about, this selective morality about conquest. Because Dinesh basically says, look, world history has really been ruled by the natural law of conquest. A powerful nation will come in and dominate another nation. It's always been that way, always will. And so what's happened is these liberals of today, and really the liberals that fought against the Vietnam War, were arguing it's not our job to be the world's policeman. Yet at the same time, who was calling for the boycotts of South Africa in the 80s? So it's their selective moral outrage.
You know what it really is? Mm-hmm. It's envy and jealousy. They're just upset that the Zulus aren't the ones that are ruling South Africa.
Okay.
See, it's the white guy, not the black guy that won.
Exactly.
See, that's what it is. In Kenya, it was the Mau Maus.
You're right.
Okay. In Uganda, it was the Baganda. Okay. Each African, it's tribal.
Yeah.
And I mean, Europe made many serious mistakes. Okay, Uganda could have been handled Africa could have been handled in a totally different and a much more civil way to make it more peaceful. And greed, it's back to the same thing, greed. But the greed is the same with the Africans. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Zulu, for example. The Zulu did not come from South Africa. They'll say, it's their land. No, it's not their land. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Zulu are what's called Bantu.
Yeah.
Bantu are the dark African tribes from Central Africa. Yeah. Okay, Sub-Saharan and Central. And they had this guy named Shaka. Shaka was this leader. And he went and started killing tribes and join me or die. And so he built this 300,000 strong army. And so they started marching south, and he started killing all the way south. So he's killing Africa. He's killing tribes.
Yeah.
So, it's okay for Shaka. In fact, he's a hero. Yeah. Black people are naming their children after Shaka. You've got congressmen. You had a congressman, mm-hmm. Shaka, whatever his name was, from Chicago, I think, or maybe from Florida. I don't know where he's from. Who cares? His name was Shaka, named after a brutal killer from Africa, okay? And so, but that's okay. That's okay. But you name a white guy, Jefferson.
Yep.
That's bad. That's bad. Washington, no, you can't. George Washington or Columbus, no. I mean, this is the silliness of these people.
It's selective, though.
And even now, think of this. He who has the power rules, right? So right now, black people are feeling their oats. Mm-hmm. So because they think they rule, they're making the rules. Yeah. They're making rules. So now, because they're making the rules, Confederate flags are bad, Columbus Day is bad, these statues are bad, certain days are bad. Now they're trying to go after the chiefs. They got rid of all of the overt ones. Now they're going after. Now they want to change the Chiefs. I was wondering when they would get to the Chiefs. They're going to get to the Blackhawks eventually. I mean, they just haven't got. Let's deal with these other ones. We'll work our way down. And it's just bored white people that are doing this.
Oh yeah.
So, but because they have the power, there's only one thing that they're not counting on: mm-hmm. Hispanics.
Yeah.
Hispanics are going to come back and bite them in the butt.
Yeah.
Hispanics are going to become, or they already are, I think, the number one power in this country.
Yeah.
And they do not like black people.
Yeah.
Be warned, black folks. You're wrestling with a tiger. You're sleeping with a tiger, sleeping with the enemy. And these people, and Asians do not like you.
Yeah.
You got a few Asian, what do you call them? Uncle whatevers, in the Hispanic area, you got Uncle Tomasita in the Asian community. I don't know what you call them, but they're out there, these talking Asian heads that are, to me, traitors to their race that want to follow your line. But the average Asian person, they know. They know it's black people beating up Asians. It's black people robbing Asians. It's black people that don't like Asians. And they will seek their revenge. Their populations already exceed yours. Hispanics right now are like, what, 40%, 40% of America, and we're just bringing them, oh, come on in. And they're going to take your jobs. You think it's funny because they're cleaning your toilets and your streets and this and that. Yeah, you wait. They're going to kick you out of those.
I got to say something.
I'm sorry. I got going on a rant.
But this is a tie-in to that. Back in the summer of 2020, now, mind you, it's been a couple of months since the, George Floyd's, tragic death. And we still have protests going on. And over in Oklahoma City, a video blogger friend of mine, Adrian Otap, who's Asian and clearly looks Asian. Tall guy, big, bulky guy. He's out there doing videos of these protests where they don't get a permit. They just block the roads and walk right down the middle of the road, right? And he's videotaping all this and going Facebook Live. And he's making an observation, says, hey, where are all the black people in this BLM march? Y'all are white college kids. Where are all the blacks? How come the blacks aren't? He's just asking the question. They're ignoring him because they realize, no, this is just a leftist front group that's just trying to utilize.
It's a honky march.
Yeah. So, whoa, I got to shut something off here.
How dare you interrupt Dave when he's on a roll?
That's right.
Yeah, I was into this. I want to hear what's going on here on this honky march.
So, I think I got an upset caller. Well, anyway, so Adrian's videotaping this, and it's ironic. Now, here's the other thing. There's a Second Amendment demonstration at the Capitol, and he's doing a Facebook Live thing, and it's a mixed race bunch. There's a black woman comes down to join him, and this is in support of constitutional carry. And all of a sudden, YouTube cuts off the live feed and says this is a violation of our policies. We do not allow people with guns to be in YouTube Live. And yet, what happened on our race riot march? There's all kinds of YouTube Live of black armed people walking down the road. They had no problem when black people.
Well, they're
guns.
lying. It should be YouTube Lies.
Yeah,
it's their YouTube Live.
So anyway, it goes on. Well, anyway, but we got off there. We were talking about Neil Young, and we started talking about the.
Is that how this started?
Yes, it
Darn
is.
that Neil Young! Look what he did again.
Yeah, but all of a sudden, all these washed up hippie singers, Joni Mitchell, to remove songs from Spotify in solidarity with Neil Young's stance against Joe Rogan's COVID misinformation. Now, all of a sudden, these people have medical degrees, don't you know? They are all drop out of college in the 60s. But
I thought that was a Babylon Bee spoof because I thought Joni Mitchell was dead.
Yeah, go figure.
I guess just her career's dead.
JoniMitchell.com is where it's posted.
I just thought Joni Mitchell was dead. So, excuse me, Joni Mitchell. Help, please, I think I'm falling.
Medical residence signed, all these different people.
Yeah, forget. She's insignificant.
Could be somebody from her estate, because they're going to collect them royalties as long as they can.
Maybe she spoke from the grave.
I know what it is. I think this is a marketing move to get PR to try to kickstart.
To play Joni Mitchell's music.
Yeah. Y'all forgot about me.
A big yellow taxi and in the parking lot. Ooh, la, 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 la.
Yeah.
Are you impressed? I actually know Joni Mitchell music.
Yeah, it was
Hey, remember
before
you
my
said,
time.
I've got layers. I know everybody's music from the 60s and 70s. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, we better move along.
Yeah, by the way, there has been legislation to crack down on drug abuse in the legislature, and they want to, some of these legalized medicines now, they want a county option. They want to toughen regulations on, doctors treating people for
CBD and
for
marijuana?
testosterone. There are people abusing testosterone.
How do you abuse testosterone?
Oh, bodybuilders.
Oh,
They've been doing.
yeah.
Remember, like Andro. Remember the disgraced great baseball player Mark McGwire. His career was over when he announced, "Yeah, I was taking Andro."
Yeah, there were a whole bunch of them.
So we got to crack down on testosterone.
Yeah.
It's a gateway drug, and this is a problem. And I am pulling your leg on this because they're doing this on marijuana in the legislature. There's all kinds
they
of
are
things.
doing it?
I just decided that I'd throw an old man's drug in there.
You had me worried because I take testosterone.
Well, yeah, it's
you knew
very
that,
helpful.
Didn't you? You knew that.
It's very helpful, and
it is very helpful.
but it can be abused.
Oh,
Fact
I'm
is,
sure it can.
last time I got prescribed it, pharmacists needed to see a official ID from me.
And it has been.
And I said, how come when a woman comes in to get female hormones, they don't ask for her ID? And the pharmacist, good friend of mine, says, well, obviously there aren't people abusing women's hormones.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's some men who want to be women.
Yeah.
But plus, I think most women get them at a, in the doctor's office anyway, don't they?
Birth control pill. It's a female
Oh, you're
hormone.
talking about birth control. Yeah, but how many guys are getting birth control? Come on, Dave. Come on, Dave.
Look, if you want to look for abuse, you're going to find it.
All right.
Yeah. And there are people that are going to abuse just about any drug.
It like Tide Pods.
Exactly. But, so anyway, I'm just pulling Eddie's strings here because there are a number of bills filed trying to cut down on access to affordable cannabis medicines.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't even want to go down that road.
Okay, I thought I'd try to get something out of Eddie, but he's moving on.
Yeah, no, I don't want to go into that. Most people know my thoughts on cannabis.
But leave my testosterone alone.
I only smoke it every other day.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But yeah, there are some other things. We got stock market. I know you want to get into that. Stephen Breyer is going to leave the Supreme Court, and then we've got. Oh my God.
Let me finish up.
Yeah.
Just basically on the Spotify deal.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan so far is winning. They said, Neil, thank you. See ya. Joe Rogan wins. They're sticking with him. Of course, he's got thousands and thousands more viewers and subscribers than Neil Young does, and probably has a whole lot more now, even after this.
Do you know his top 4 episodes, Joe Rogan's on Spotify, happened to be Dr. McCullough. That was the first, radical. How dare this guy go off of the? And
he's actually one of the developers of the MNR.
Malone, that's the other guy.
Malone, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Dr. McCullough is the medical journal editor for a long time. Is well respected until, of course, this happened. But the number 2 and 3 episodes for downloads, Alex Jones on Joe Rogan's show. Joe and Alex have been friends for a long time. So what's happening is Joe's realizing and Spotify realizing that they're getting more downloads, more traffic when they got somebody who's not touting the fascist, line.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. All right. Well, yeah, let's move on. I'm trying to see what we can maybe hit a little more quickly. We're almost at the end of this segment. Why don't you go ahead? Let's deal with the stock market real quick before we. Of course, it's been diving for a bit, but it really took a big hit this week. The Dow, we're officially in recession territory.
Yes.
And we have lost over 10%. That's when we're considered receding.
Now, according to government definitions, recession is when you have 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline. But this is also what economists call an indicator of a recession looming.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Well, they're playing a little fast and loose because the GDP grew at a certain amount, but at the same time, you had inflation outpacing that.
Yeah.
So, it's like, oh yeah, our growth has exceeded the past so many years, but inflation outgrew it, so we're still negative. We're still in negative territory.
But when hasn't Washington played with numbers? You see it all the time where they will announce this month's jobless report, and they will have corrected the previous report from the month before.
Here's what's funny to me. Whenever you have a Democrat president, okay, we lost 200,000 jobs, but things are looking good.
Yeah.
Okay. When Trump or Bush was in office, I noticed this first with Bush. We had a gain of 200,000, but things are looking bleak.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly, they always paint the Republican gains with a negative picture and the Democrats negative with a positive picture.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing that, and it's so obvious if anybody's listening. Now your average person sits, they don't listen with the discerning ear that you and I listen with.
Right.
But it is pretty funny.
And the media's always done that. They will report the facts, and then they will spin it and tell us what we're supposed to think about it.
Right.
Now, Rush Limbaugh always liked to tweak them by being obvious. He says, I'll get you all the news, and as a bonus, I'll tell you what to think about it.
Yeah, he would do that. But yeah, it's not looking good. Here's what's bad. I am not quick or savvy, or maybe I just don't care enough to sell and buy. My portfolio lost $500, say, in the last 2 weeks. Okay, and so I go, man. So it goes down 500, so I'll buy a little more, waiting for it to go up. It may lose 5. I'll buy some more. So I buy as it goes down, so that when it goes back up.
Right.
Now, if I sold it as it's going down, then I'd come out even more ahead. That way, when it gets back up and buy, as it's going up, or wait till it hits the bottom and buy. But who has time for that? I'm not a day trader. Day traders will sit there behind their little computers all day and watch the graphs and the charts and this and that, and they got the inside stuff and this and that. Or I could pay somebody to do that, but I just don't have time and energy.
After the break, we should get into talking about the housing market, because that's really
that's a really interesting one. Okay, all right, we're going to take another break, and we will be back after these messages. The message is the book Y'all Have Sinned, and you can get it on Amazon, or you can get it at Barnes & Noble, and Lord willing, you will soon be able to get it from us, and you can get it at Fresh Black.Coffee, at podbean.com, or freshblack.coffee, and just email me or us, and we'll give you all the instructions on how to get it, okay? I'm waiting on 200 copies. I will autograph those and send them out to you at your leisure, at your request, okay? And I have to confess, it's weird. Amazon has had these things since the beginning of December. I cannot get any. The printing is that far back. I mean, at least that's what they keep telling me, and I am getting a little bit perturbed. Is it perturbed or perturbed? I'm turbed. I'm post-turbed. I'm beyond turbed. I'm post-turbed. Now, I'm beyond pre or per. I am post-turbed. But anyway, if you'll contact us, we'll get those to you, and I will put a nice little message in there for you. But seriously, a lot of what we talk about is in this, the whole Shaka Zulu. I go into slavery. I promise you there will be stuff in here you will never have ever imagined or understood or know about. Slavery, indentured servitude, Islam, Christianity, CRT. Dave, you got a copy, didn't you? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Dave.
And I'm back.
He's back.
Yeah, I was reading just your introduction the other day, and you said, if I haven't offended you yet, be patient, I will. Because you step on a lot of toes in this book, a lot of toes.
Yeah, I do. I think that, as I said, I step on a lot of toes. The biggest toe I step on, I think, is the Martin Luther King Jr. chapter. Yeah. Which I don't want to offend, but I do.
If the truth offends, so be it.
Yeah, here's my problem on the whole Martin Luther King Jr. thing. I think he did a lot for civil rights. I don't take that, and I mentioned that. But a lot of people attribute things to him that are not attributable.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's very, he's been given credit for a lot of things he shouldn't be in and doesn't take heat for things that he should. For example, a lot of people, Sean Hannity's one of them. He's always saying, if Martin Luther King Jr. were alive, he would, he wouldn't be like Barack Obama or Jesse Jackson, blah, blah. And I would say, yes, he would, because he's the father. He's the guy who began all of this. Yeah. And he wouldn't be any different. It all began there. And so to try to say that he would be different, I think is not right. And people always try to make him a Republican. Well, I don't know. He may have been a Republican at one time. I think he was a registered Republican. But to try to say he would still be a Republican or he'd probably be a Republican today like Liz Cheney's a Republican, if that. He'd probably be even worse. But anyway, these are things that, I don't even deal with it from that aspect. You'll see it's deeper. I deal with him in a whole different way. And I take history, biblical history, and socio-political history, and current events, and mix them all together, and that's what we get.
Can I say I was watching some YouTube videos of when George Wallace was campaigning in '72 in Oklahoma. It was very interesting. I watched the Democrat Party in Oklahoma, very racist, very segregationalist, And if you're a Southern black man, of course you weren't going to join the Democrat Party. So, so there is that. I mean, we're seeing something that you can't just take 1950s and 60s politics and move it up to 2020 and say, oh yeah, they would still be in this little niche. So I agree with you.
That's one of the greatest tricks that's ever been pulled to me, how they were able to get racist Democrats who hated black people and unions. Yeah. The way the unions treated black people in those days, the segregation within the unions, and put them all together. Yeah.
When I moved to Oklahoma in 1980, it wasn't very long. I saw a lot of this, especially in the older generation Oklahomans. There was a lot of racist beliefs, not in the militant sense, but very much the separatist thing. In fact, a former employer of mine, when I was working on Phil Graham's presidential campaign in '95, I remember working with his national team. We brought him to Oklahoma for some things. An employer of mine said, well, I can't support him. And I said, why not? Now, we were in the warehouse, and he had people of different ethnicities working for him. And I said, well, why not? He said, well, it's his wife. I said, what's wrong with his wife? And he said, well, she doesn't look like an American. Well, of course, she's Asian, right? And I retorted right back to him in a very calm way. I said, "Sir, what does an American look like?" Boom. He couldn't. So he was anti-Asian.
Right.
Okay. And he said, "No, keep your mouth quiet. I don't want Song hearing me." Song was the Filipino woman that was working for him.
Right.
He didn't want to offend her.
Yeah.
But so what happened is racism became more clouded, more shrouded, more, well, it's not racism, it's actually this, or it's actually that.
Right.
Where we used to see outright racism, at least it was an honest racism. Now it's cloaked in a bunch
That's a part of
stuff.
something that I talk about in my book. I don't, where I say I don't believe there is such a thing actually as racism. Okay, it's classism.
Or tribalism, maybe?
Yeah, you could call it tribalism, but it still ends up being classism. So, for example, in England, okay, Europe. Take Europe.
Yes.
There were no Asians, there were no black people, it was just they were all the same people. Okay, and so let's take in England, Germany. You pick a country.
Yeah.
You had what? The elite, the bureaucracy, or the aristocracy.
That's right.
The lords, the ladies, the nobles, blah blah, and then you finally got down to the peons, right? And then the utter rejects. And so they were looked down upon as badly as any black person or Asian that came along there. And when they came to America, remember the immigrants. It was the Italians
and the Catholic.
Polish,
yes, the Irish and the Italians. Why? Because they're Catholic.
The Germans, Puerto Ricans.
So some of this was Protestant versus Catholic.
Yeah, but that was a whole different deal. That's a different deal. I'm talking about the classism.
Right.
Now, what I look at, I've always seen it as a classism, like we're a higher class and you're low. So
well-bred.
So because well-bred.
Yes.
Yeah. So because black people started out in Africa as a servant class.
Yep.
Hispanics in South America, what were they? They were servants, right? They served. So because they started out as servants, that's the identity that was imprinted upon them. So when they came to Europe, they became servants. When they came to America, so they became a servant class. So that's just the identity. And so even the lower class whites, no one wants to be low man on the totem pole, right?
Right.
Everybody wants to have somebody that they can feel a little better. So these Negroes that ended up becoming Negres, and then eventually from Negra to Nigger, they became the servant class.
Yep.
And so these people could feel good, even if they were low class, they're not the lowest class.
Right. I would conjecture that even the colonists from America, well, I mean, the song Yankee Doodle was a put down of the American colonists. And Ben Franklin, when he was, the ambassador to France, he would play it up. He would dress in a coonskin hat walking down the streets of Paris because he's like, I don't care. Now, Ben Franklin had already made a name for himself in scientific circles just by his sheer brilliance, right? But so you have a lot of that, and so much of that disdain for that, classism, that in the U.S. Constitution, we outright banned any of those classes, or titles.
Well, we tried.
Yeah.
You can ban titles and stuff, but you cannot ban the mindset.
Well, yeah, you can't remove it from culture,
right?
But you can remove it from the statutory code,
right? Exactly. No, that's true.
Yeah,
and the South didn't want to do that.
Yeah,
because they still had that Southern culture, their own.
Yeah,
they had that high, like the cotillion.
Yeah,
when a lady comes out at a certain age, and then we have the cotillion, and we present them, even though they were probably just as horny as
and that's the
else.
thing. The terms "lady" and "gentleman" in Europe mean something totally different.
Right. Exactly.
They mean they own land, right? or at least gentleman. That means
Yeah, you were a gentleman, and this is the lady so and so. This is the gentleman so and so. Right, a great one to watch. Oh my goodness, my wife and I started watching on PBS Pole Dark. It's a really good. And you saw how they treated it. Made me. That's one thing really opened my eyes. How the British and the guy used to talk about the other. These people need to learn how to treat their betters.
Yep. Yeah.
You must learn how to treat you, and we're going to teach you how to. And so they put them in prison or hang them or kill them. I mean, they could do and take their land. They could do anything they want to the peons, the lower class. And so, but I'll give you another example. Africa, in Uganda. I go to Uganda, and you got these guys, and they're proud because if they married a lighter-skinned African woman, then, or the woman marry a lighter-skinned one, then the Sudanese. The Sudanese are very dark-skinned people, but you may have someone from Kenya or what they call them, I can't remember the tribe, but anyway, but there's a lighter skin and a darker skin, and you got these guys, they're proud that, I married a brown one. Instead of and stuff, and I'm sitting there like, seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, even in South Africa, the colors, which are mixed.
Yeah.
It can be Asian. I mean, Asians and mixed race are a higher class than the blacks. And I always just sit and I just want to go like, no.
I gotta respond to a couple of things you said. Ronald Reagan, in fact, at his funeral, Prime Minister Mulroney of Canada, another Irishman, he told some things about Reagan's self-effacing humor. Like Reagan, early on his presidency, it was St. Patrick's Day. And he just gets to a secret. So he says, find me a pub. They finally go over across the river into Alexandria and find this Irish pub. And he just shows up there. First, they do a quick sweep, and he goes in and he stands at the bar. In fact, you can find the YouTube video where he picks up a mug and he says, "We Irish built the jails in America. And then we filled them, But Mulroney told the story of their first big state meeting. The two of them, Reagan, Nancy, and Ronald went to Canada. And they had a couple of days. The second day was more serious trade and other issues where Mulroney and Reagan met. But their wives went off, did something else. But then they were having a nice state dinner that night. And Mulroney says he's standing there next to Ronald and the women are coming. Walking us, and Ronnie turns to Mulroney and he says, for a couple of Irish guys, we sure married up, didn't we? Because the Irish were always put down in America. And yes, I'm Irish, and I'm going to claim this. It's like I've been persecuted now.
Yeah, there's another good book I can recommend. It's by. I can't think of his name. He's the black conservative. He's still around. Thomas Sowell.
Yes.
And his book is Black Rednecks and White Liberals.
Nice.
Yeah. But he goes into the whole history of how black culture became black culture. And he says it comes from Scotland and the hill country of northern England. And the term redneck comes, it's not... most people, and I'm sure you're one of them, always think that it's from starched collars that had an abrasive, left their necks red.
No, I didn't think that. I thought you bent over working the crops and you got sunburned. Really?
It has nothing to do with the neck.
I just assumed it was that.
No, it was the Scottish there and the people in the hill country in northern England. They used to wear red bandanas around their necks. Okay. And that's how they were known. They were called the rednecks. And the culture was the hard drinking, fighting, would fight you, kill you over a woman. The same type of culture that ended up bleeding over into the black community in America. And he says what happened as black people moved from their association working on the farms in that culture, they moved into the urban centers and ghettoized. Then that solidified That's how they learn the improper English. They learn. It's like Red Fox said, "Hey nigga, go back to Africa." He says, "What do you mean Africa? I'm from St. Louis."
That's right.
Yeah, and he said, "Where do you think?" He said, "Where do you think we learned? Nobody talks like that in Africa. We learned that from y'all." And but anyway, so Red Fox, the comedy, was actually telling the truth, and he talks about that. We learned that vernacular was poor English came from those people that came over from England and Scotland.
Yep.
But anyway, so what he says is because we moved into those urban centers, that became the new language. While at the same time, the culture in the white towns, even in the Deep South, if you notice, because of education, you can't tell anymore. Somebody says they're from Georgia or Texas or even Oklahoma. They don't have the Okie accents or the deep Texas drawl or Alabama, Georgia, unless they're really from really hick town way out.
Yeah, remote. It's rural.
Right.
Yeah.
But most of them, they've lost that.
Yeah.
And that's because their culture has been influenced by education and assimilation by people who have moved in from California and New York and everything. And so I mean, it's an interesting, if you get a chance, buy the book. It's called Black Rednecks and White Liberals. It's and it has a whole. I mean, it's an awesome book. Almost as good as y'all have said. Now. Yeah. It's a lot thicker. It's a lot thicker. It has a whole lot of other stuff. But no, it's a very, very excellent book. Thomas, all of his books are good. But that's a pretty simple one. It's not like the other book. Anyway, hey, we better move on in the limited time we have. I want to discuss Ukraine.
Okay, I was wanting to talk about housing as a tie-in to the stock market.
Can we do it quickly? Oh yeah, let's do it quickly if we can.
Yeah, because we in our last segment we were talking about stock market and what do you do, buy, sell, and that. Well, a lot of us now are looking at our housing values. You get on Zillow.com, like, oh my God,
mine went up $100,000 in the last year and a half.
Our house is now worth 3 times what we bought it for.
Right.
And but and my kids are like, Dad, you need to sell. And I said, can I live with you when I sell? Because otherwise I got to buy a house at these prices.
The problem, that not only it's yourself, the new one you're buying is also gone up. Yeah.
Now, I talked to a banker friend of mine, and he said whenever the big money sees that inflation's going to hit, they pour all their money into real estate because it's a great hedge against inflation. He says, you got a stack of $20 bills in your top drawer. Every time you open that drawer, there's probably going to be one less because inflation's going to make its value disappear. And he said, you put that into housing in a smart way. He says, you can make money during inflation because right now housing is way beyond inflation rates. So I wanted you to speak to that.
Yeah, and that's another problem, that a lot of the money that is being spent on this housing is investors. It's not even personal.
Further inflating the price.
Right, exactly.
Because it's supply and demand.
They're buying it all up.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I'm going to say this. Because I'm in business and I can't discriminate, I do have a Chinese client, and the Chinese client now has about 5 different properties that they have bought, and these properties are probably worth anywhere from $200,000 to $800,000 properties. They've all appreciated. I mean, they bought them 2-3 years ago, but they're being purchased for people in China. And which I recently found out. I didn't even know that initially, but I found that out. And there's a whole network of people. Now they've been here in America for a long time. They own businesses here, and so they're legit now. But they are buying for their family members. I guess they're waiting to escape, come over, or whatever. But I mean, what's amazing is they're able to pay cash for a lot of these houses, and then others that they're making payments on. And everything.
I'm going to take us back to what Eric Ramaswamy said when he was a guest on our show a few months back. He's from
Mauritania.
Mauritania, yes, which is an island, part of Africa off the east coast, Indian Sea. He's of Indian tribal ethnicity, which pretty much the whole island
He's
there
an
is.
Indian African.
Right.
And so African American and Indian African.
God, stop it, Eddie.
No, I mean, it's true.
You got to poke fun of it. So anyway, but he said, yeah, China's going in buying up Africa too. Yeah. It's not just American thing. Now, what's going on in our legislature is we got these bills really trying to crack down on any foreigner buying farmland in Oklahoma.
You know what they're doing? They're buying marijuana farms.
Well, yes, I'm hearing that. Now, the narrative is that, yes, it's buying that up. So they're trying to use it as your reason to further crack down on whoever gets to get a license on it. But I don't see it as just limited to just the whole medical marijuana thing. I think they're just buying up. They're buying up everything. So what farmer is going to complain about the value of their farmland going up?
None.
Well, but they are.
And they're paying cash.
Yeah. So you know what's happening is the people that are complaining.
The farmers are complaining about their value of their land going up.
They're saying it's farmers complaining. I think it's Tyson Poultry. It's the other big agriculture.
Oh, because they're not able to buy any more land.
And in a lot of these bills are coming from a fella up in Grove, Oklahoma, who's been very tied in to the big poultry concerns up there around Grand Lake. A lot of money's gone into his
the poultry that's pouring waste into our water.
Yes. Yes. Because look, they now see the cost of them expanding going higher because the Chinese are up in the ante by raising the value.
Right.
They want to keep it low because they plan on acquiring more.
Yeah, but it's not just the Chinese, right? I mean, all land and home and property is going up.
Yeah.
The only thing going down is commercial real estate because there's so many vacant places sitting empty.
Okay, what's causing that? That's some of this, the paradigm shift of employees working from home in the high-rise offices. I mean, some of my kids
even low-rise. Go over here at 41st and the I-44. Mm-hmm. You know where Best Buy is over there,
sure.
The home mall, the outdoor mall. I mean, if you look and see the empty office space.
Okay, that's another dynamic is the .com, the online buying, because the pandemic also moved that paradigm over to people just ordering online and getting delivered. And if you don't have an Amazon Prime account, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, but everything's cyclical. It'll change. I mean, it will. Everything will change. My question is with regard, to your home.
Yeah.
Let's say, you sell and you in anticipation of waiting for these prices to come back down. Mm-hmm. Will it come down? It probably will, but then it'll go back up.
Yeah.
Like, for example, this happened once before around 2000.
Yeah.
Okay. And all of a sudden, I looked at one point, my home, a prior home I had, it went way up. I didn't sell. But then about 6 years later, the prices went way down.
Yeah.
So had I sold and waited 5 or 6 years, I could have. But who usually can wait that long?
That's the thing. If it's an investment property, that's one thing. But when it's your shelter,
right,
that you raise your children in, you don't have that luxury of waiting.
No, you don't. So it is there are people with much sharper business and real estate acumen than I have.
Yeah. I tell you what's really led to the starter homes. They have the biggest demand right now. And it's, Eddie, the people who didn't lose their job in the pandemic, they didn't get shut down, but they still got stimulus checks between husband and wife. And then maybe with kids, you might have $5,000 come in. Well, now all of a sudden you got the money to close on a house and you didn't.
Right.
And so that to me is what's sparking a lot of people buying their first house during that elevation.
To me, the best thing to do, honestly, the best way to go is to, if you have the money, is to buy property, maybe out a bit, buy an acre, and then where there's already utilities in it, but buy some land outside, and then become friends with a builder or something. So, or know some people, become friends with a plumber, concrete people, just become your own general contractor.
Right.
Hire people and build your own house.
One of my sons is doing that right now.
Build your own house. That's the cheapest way to do it. Hey, let's wrap up with the whole Ukraine situation.
Yeah.
Ukraine mess. Man, there's a whole lot of ways this can go. I think we're being played.
Yeah?
I think we're being played.
How so?
I think this is a whole lot of nothing.
Is this Wag the dog?
I think it's Wag the Chihuahua.
Okay. It's distraction from what?
Everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen, Putin is probably we're not going to go to war. I don't think we're going to war. I think Putin is going to take over Ukraine. Okay, but we're not going to war. I may be wrong, but what I see coming is what they're going to do. They're amassing all of these people. I think they're just going to take over the government of Ukraine. They're going to have a new government in there, and it'll be a puppet government.
Putin has done that before.
Oh, yeah. And essentially, Ukraine will be, and then Biden will look like he gets a win because he averted war in the Ukraine.
Now, U.S. presidents have done this for decades, where they've had their handlers go down and help install who they want as president in an election. We do it all the time, and we cry outrage when another country does it here.
Right. So, So, Ukraine has been a corrupt nation for a long time.
On all sides, I say.
Yeah.
I do not see a good guy in the Ukrainian politics.
No.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing I could hope for would be wonderful is if the current regime would get all the records where the underhanded dealings with Hunter and keep those and then expose them. Yeah. Just to show how corrupt, what really happened. And then leave. Let the Russians have it.
They were going to do that, and Joe Biden brags about how he got that prosecutor fired.
Oh, no, I know. But what I'm saying is they should take those records and then expose them just to, show, let the Russians go ahead and do what they're going to do. Now, but to me, here's what this has exposed. We're about at the end of our thing. What is exposed is our weak NATO allies. Yep. What we really should do, we should move all of our troops and everything we have out of Germany immediately into Poland, into Czech Republic, and especially into Hungary. Immediately. Take everything out of Germany. And the billions of dollars we spend in Germany every year. If let them make their bed with Russia, and the oil, the gas pipeline, you want it, you got it. You rely on them, we're out.
Yeah, because we move so much money into the German economy through our spending on defense.
For 70 years we've done it.
And you grew up there.
70 years.
Yeah.
Unbelievable how much money we have spent there. Yeah. It's time to end it. You guys, you're on your own.
Yeah. It's time to end it.
Time to end it. The other thing, and the reason they're in real problems now is because they have gone green and they've destroyed all of their nuclear plants. And those nuclear plants used to keep them, but they decided, and let this be a cautionary tale, people, of what happens when you do that. All right? Hey, we're done. We're going to have to leave. So we'll see you guys again next week.
All right.
All right.